Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 18th episode of the Soccer Scene in conjunction with Sport in Limerick. We're joined by the ever-reliable Noel O'Connor to discuss all things between the Nations League at the moment, with Ireland involved in 4 games in a row in this clogged fixture congestion, I suppose, in international football, which we're not used to. And obviously to discuss all things Treaty United. We've had a week's break on the soccer scene in conjunction with the Electricity League break, which took place last week for the First Division sides. I know we had Tommy Barrett, Treaty United's manager, on, and he said that it was a welcome break for Treaty. Noel, was it a welcome break for yourself? Are you refreshed?
Definitely refreshed and looking forward to the weekend. Look, I mean, outside of doing the podcast every week, I certainly have an interest in what's happening in the league every week in terms of the Premier Division and the First Division. So some interesting games certainly coming up this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those games, which will be of huge interest to us anyway, would be Treaty United travelling to Ferrycarrig Park, Noel, where they take on Wexford FC. It's the second time Treaty have travelled to Wexford this year. They obviously won 5-1, a convincing enough win up in Ferrycarrig Park, first game of the season. Their third time actually playing Wexford. They also beat them at the Markets Field 2-1 in dramatic fashion, with Stephen Christopher scoring penalty. So they'll be looking for a third win in a row. Huge opportunity, Noel, it must be said, for Treaty to put a 6-point gap between themselves and Wexford, and could be at least 6 points clear in 5th place if they get a win at Ferrycarrig Park. But also, I suppose, because of Treaty not having won a game themselves in 8 games, Wexford will be looking at this saying, we can go level with Treaty. So a huge opportunity for both sides going into this.
Yeah, it's very intriguing game, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, a lot of subplots as well. You're right about that 3 point. It seems amazing that 50% of Treaty's wins have come against Wexford in the league so far, and yet Wexford are only 3 points behind them. And it certainly is looking like, and I think the game on Friday will have a big bearing on it, a kind of a 3-horse race, if you like, for that 5th place, because there's certainly been a bit of an upturn in form with Bray as well. And there's no doubt that this is a really, really big game in terms of momentum for both Treaty and Wexford on Friday. I know from my own experience of managing that league, certainly Treaty have an Indian sign over Wexford, and they had it last year as well. There was a couple of games where, you know, you felt that Wexford were certainly unlucky not to get something out of the game. Whatever about the first game in Ferrycarrig Park, certainly was a case in the second fixture at the Markets Field. You know, I'd say that Wexford would have felt, you know, quite aggrieved that they didn't get anything out of the game. But they seem to have gone from strength to strength. There was a lot of talk, obviously, about Ian Ryan being approached by Waterford United, and from what I've heard down there, they certainly threw the kitchen sink at pricing him away. They came back 2 or 3 times and with better offers, and you know, it's probably something that's quite rare, particularly in that football in Ireland, where someone shows a bit of loyalty to a club that gave him a chance. I suppose it says a lot about Ian Ryan. He's a guy I don't know that well. Obviously, I do remember facing him as a player when he was with Shelburne and UCD. But you have to commend the fact, because I know from what I've heard, it was a really, really decent offer. So he's obviously happy where he was. It's certainly a massive boost for the club, and I'm sure for that squad of players as well. And when you look at their last couple of results, the most impressive one being obviously a 0-0 draw below against the free-scoring Cork City side, and by all accounts, they were full value for that point and clean sheet. It's making for a really intriguing game on Friday night.
That is true. And I know, Noel, you mentioned obviously they got a clean sheet. That's something that Ian Ryan was harping on a bit about, is that they really had to improve defensively, Wexford, because obviously even Treaty scored 5 against them recently. I know Joe Gorman quipped that Treaty felt they were going to win the Champions League after beating Wexford 5-1 on the opening night of the year, but they scored quite a few goals. Then Wexford looked like they were on for a draw in Markets Field. One long ball down the pitch, missed by the centre-backs. You could see the frustration from Ian Ryan on the night, on the sideline, at them conceding from a play like that. And that has been their Achilles heel. And I suppose that's something that Treaty, you know, have to go for, you know, is get at their defence. And I think maybe an approach in terms of attacking the game would probably be the best form of defence at this stage.
Yeah, and I suppose we're probably wondering here who's available for Treaty. Like, you know, there doesn't seem to be too many updates in terms of availability and injury updates. And obviously, someone we haven't mentioned yet, but Enda Kern, who also was excellent on the night below in Wexford the last day, is probably a really key player now for Treaty. Seems that, they're a lot more likely to score and win a game when he's on the pitch. And, they can look quite toothless when he's not playing. I know he wasn't involved in the last couple of games, but I think if he is involved on Friday night, it'll be a massive boost to them and certainly a turn in the Wexford side.
Yeah, certainly will be the case. And I was looking back actually at the previous two games against Wexford that were Treaty had joy. I think it was with a formation that Tommy Barrett would be used to playing in terms of a 4-3-3, or some would say 4-2-3-1, whichever way you look at it. Treaty have played a 4-4-2 formation, which would seem on the outset as being more attacking in a lot of games in the last round, Noel. I suppose there is a lot riding on this game, even though there will be the bones of 15 matches after this as well, so there will be a long time to go, but there is a lot riding on it in terms of confidence anyway for Treaty. Do you think that Tommy Barrett will think to himself, I need to come out of here with at least a point, or do you think, like he says himself, that he will be going to Wexford with a view to winning this game and maybe playing with an attacking mindset?
Yeah, I think he will be happy to get a draw. I think a defeat would be kind of certainly with the run that they're on, certainly a real demoralising defeat. I think the difference between this league, say, and last year's league is the teams, the reality is, and I know Treaty, Waterford, and I can't really see putting a glove on the likes of Cork and Galway and Waterford. So the points available are obviously the ones between themselves, and from that point of view, these games are have a bigger significance than they would have had last year. So I would think that Tommy would be happy with a draw at the end. I don't think he'll say that. Obviously, they'll certainly go to win. In terms of formation, I think for me watching Treaty, I always feel a lot more comfortable when they have two solid central midfielders. I think they look a lot more solid when they have that. And if they do play a third midfielder, someone who can do both sides of the game, attack when it's on and become a third midfielder out of possession. And certainly to be solid on one side, which I think Matt Keane certainly gives you that. And maybe the bit of flair on the other side in terms of Stephen Christopher or Joel Costrain.
Yeah, I wonder, that seems like the most likely option considering the two games that went previously to this for Tommy Barrett. I know that after the Waterford game, Noel, which obviously we didn't discuss in detail because of the break, Treaty had kept Waterford down in 0-0 first half, conceded a plethora of goals in the second half, and I know Tommy Barrett said there were sloppy goals. He was disappointed. He has said that is a recurring theme in recent weeks. Obviously, the most disappointing would be Waterford, Cove and Bray, in particular, which happened recently, and he has said that does need to improve. It is an area of concern. I mentioned it for Wexford. It's also an area of concern for Treaty at the moment, Noel, and you need, especially on the road, they will need to tighten that up.
I totally agree, and like we have mentioned Wexford, but it was earlier in the season that it was a bigger issue for Wexford. It looks like something that they've kind of reduced, if you like, and it seems to be, getting worse, for want of a better word, with Treaty, particularly the goals. And a couple of the goals that Waterford got, like they literally ran the length of the field to score, which was really disappointing from a Treaty point of view. And I just felt that they got in so easily, and like the kind of whole organisation broke down at the end, because for the last goal from the corner, as far as I can remember, there was no one on the front post, and there was no one in the hole either, which created a big gap for Waterford to score second phase when the ball was headed back across the goals. So things like that would certainly be concerning, particularly going away to Wexford, because obviously we spoke about their defensive frailties, but we also have to say that they have some really good attacking talent and some really good players, the likes of Dinny Corcoran and a few more like him, who can certainly hurt you.
Yeah, certainly. And I know you mentioned that. We have mentioned Jack Doherty at length, the likes of Dinny Corcoran at length. So do you think, Noel, from speaking on it earlier, that having Enda Kern and possibly Jack Lynch in the team is the key for Treaty to getting a result in Wexford?
Oh, I think it'll be absolutely huge, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what Tommy does with Jack Lynch as well, obviously, and you're probably going to bring it up, so we'll bring it up now that Charlie Fleming as the part of the scene, when we're talking about selection and that.
Yeah.
And obviously there's an option there at right back.
That is something I was going to ask you, Noel, because obviously the departure of Charlie Fleming, a lot of people have bemoaned that departure. It was due to work commitments. As far as I would know, it was a full-time job offer in Cork. And, from what we're led to believe, if rumours are to believe, he could be signing for Cove Ramblers in July on a part-time basis. That hasn't been confirmed by any reliable source, though, as of yet. He made 42 appearances for Treaty. The only one made more than him, as far as I'm aware, is Mark Ludden on the team. He had 40 starts, Noel. You weren't his biggest fan, if I remember, particularly last season, in terms of maybe a defensive capacity. He seems to have been a loss in terms of the eyes of many supporters. What do you think now, looking back on his time with Treaty, and how would you assess it?
Yeah, I think he was a guy that was desperate to get a chance, to prove himself. And in fairness to Tommy, he gave him that opportunity and gave him plenty of starts. I thought, I was disappointed overall in terms of his defensive play. There was no doubt about it. I thought he did quite well going forward. Great crosser of the ball, some good set-piece deliveries. And he was part of the Treaty fairy tale, if you like, last year. Will he be a massive loss? I'm not so sure. I was mulling over what you could do, and I'm looking at Matt Keane. I think defensively he's really good. He gets forward as well. And, to be fair to Charlie, probably the way that Treaty set up their fullbacks can be a bit far up the pitch as well, in terms of when there's a turnover. And I kind of touched on that there a while ago, the way Waterford counter-attacked them. And any team, even last year with UCD, when they counter-attacked them out wide, it's always spelled trouble for Treaty. So, he might have been a different defender if he was sitting nice and tight, but maybe that wasn't what he was told to do by his manager and coaches. But I think that Matt Keane could do a decent job for them. Certainly very good defensively, I think, and wouldn't be afraid to get forward and put some decent balls into the box as well.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. And I know that it has been suggested, Noel, that Jack Lynch obviously could play there. He has played there in the past. He's very adept. The only worry, I suppose, with that is you don't really want to be taking Jack out of the centre of that team either. That would be a worry if that was the case. Another player, I suppose, Noel, that has been tried there, only on the one occasion as far as I'm aware, but it was something that Tommy had been looking at, was Stephen Christopher at right back. What would you make of that, and do you think that's an option?
To me, he's a very attack-minded player. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned as well, but I think your full-back's first job is to stop crosses and to tuck in nice and tight alongside the centre half, cover in behind, particularly when the ball's on the far side of the pitch. And if they can get forward and support the wide player, I'm very happy with that. And it all depends what you want out of a manager. I think Mark Walsh, did he play there once as well, I think?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. Is he available? I know we've been waiting for him to come back.
He's back. He was back in the last couple of games, so that might be an option.
I certainly prefer to see Jack Lynch play, particularly if Enda Kern is playing. I think Jack Lynch should be an ideal foil behind him, because Enda is so good at holding up the ball. And, some of Jack Lynch's runs beyond the number 9 this year and last year have been really, really good. He doesn't do it all day, but he might do it 3 or 4 times. There's nearly always a positive result. Remember a fabulous goal he got against Bray, I think, lately as well. And, he has that in the locker, and he's a big lad in the middle of the pitch as well, which is important. So it would be nice to see that, 2 solid central midfielders, maybe Callum McNamara, Joe Collins, whoever. There's an option to go with Mark Walsh on the right, or maybe Matt Keane, and there is options there, So I think the shape will be important. I think they're going to have to be very solid out of possession, and certainly they can let the space and room that they gave Waterford a couple of weeks ago available to this Wexford side, who I think are going to be in a very positive frame of mind, with the positive news that they've got and the fact that they're still within striking distance of Treaty, despite having lost to them twice.
And as Noel mentioned earlier, obviously we haven't got injury updates or work commitment updates to bring you Treaty team news at the moment. So unfortunately, we can't really shed light on the players that are missing right now at this moment, although I do believe Jack Lynch will be back in contention. That's about all we do know. But it should be an intriguing game between Wexford and Treaty. on Friday evening, which will obviously be live on LOI TV, and we will be hoping obviously that the Limerick side come back with all 3 points. Noel, to finish it on the note with the national team, due to time constraints, Noel, we're actually recording this podcast during one of the Irish games, which is not the best time to talk about that. I suppose some people will call us silly, some will say we're committed. I don't know which one we fall under, but obviously it was a disappointing result for Stephen Kenny and his side on Saturday against Armenia. Armenia seemed to sit very defensively in a low block. Ireland didn't create an awful lot to break them down. From what I've seen earlier on in the game tonight, the likes of Jason Knight, they've looked bright. They've looked to be on the front foot against Ukraine, although we're not fully sure of the score right now at this moment. Obviously, they have Scotland coming up as well Saturday, another big game. But obviously, this game with Ukraine, particularly tonight, that's one where you'd obviously be hoping that, you know, you pick up 3 points, because they've made 10 changes to their side as well.
They've made 10 changes, and they must be crushed with the result as well on Sunday. And obviously, you know, very, very unlucky to lose as well. I thought they had a stone one penalty when Joe Allen fouled in the box. I couldn't believe that VAR didn't give it. And, you know, when it's your day, it's your day. And it certainly was Wales's day. And look, it must have been a big blow to them. But, you know, they're obviously in a very mad situation at the moment, you know, where the national team means so much and the eyes of the world are on them every time they play. And look, they certainly will be difficult opposition for Ireland. I actually did see the first 15 minutes or so, and I thought the tempo was quite high as well. And I'd have a little worry about, you know, how long, because I just felt that the Irish three seemed to be working extremely hard, even to close down the Ukrainians, who were so good at passing the ball around. The result on Saturday was obviously very, very disappointing and a real body blow. But all you can do is head to the next game and hope you can do better. But I think there's a lot of work to be done with that group, and hopefully they can get a positive result tonight.
Our thanks once again to Noel O'Connor, our trusted lieutenant and our analyst, for the game on Friday night with Wexford and Treaty. And obviously we hope that both Treaty and Ireland can get positive results the weekend. And we will be back next week, and hope you can join us to discuss and have a post-mortem on the Treaty game against Wexford, and obviously preview next week's action as well.